Good morning, everybody. I hope you all enjoyed the after party last night. Hands up, people who went to the party last night. Who enjoyed a beer? Who's a bit hungover? Who's still drunk? This is the way. Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for coming here so early. My name is Ash Davies. I'm a Kotlin and Android GDE here in Berlin. This talk is called This Year in Android, What a Long, Strange Trip It's Been. So the goal of this talk is not necessarily to help you leave here with any additional knowledge or help you in any way, but to kind of highlight how fast and how quickly the Android ecosystem evolves, moves, and grows. Because it's really kind of difficult, even for experienced engineers, to kind of keep up with the pace of things, with all these new libraries being released, with all these new things. And this is why we rely upon ourselves and our team to help us in our own little kind of niche and specializations. But if you look at this from the perspective of a new engineer or somebody joining the field for the first time, it can be very daunting. So I'd just like to kind of highlight that and show you all how quickly this thing goes so that you have an understanding. I'm going to do my best with the timing, but I can't make promises. So, like I said, the development of Android is blazingly fast, with so many useful libraries being produced each and every day, and older projects being shelved, other projects being amalgamated, other things being combined. And it's not just about Android in this talk as well. I'm going to try and make it a bit funny. There'll be a little bit of politics and a little bit of tech news, but don't worry. I only touched on the politics which I feel that I'm authorized to actually make comment on because I'm British. That was too hot. So this was one of the first images captured by the James Webb Telescope last year, the Cosmic Cliffs Carina Nebula. Very cool image. I thought I'd introduce that there as like a special thing. So this talk kind of came to me after DroidCon Berlin last year, the best conference in the world. Absolutely no bias there, completely impartial. So DroidCon Berlin took place in in the 5th of 7th of July, 2022. Attracting over 1,300 Android developers, hosting over 95 talks over 3 days. And it's such a huge amount of knowledge transfer. I myself can't even begin to kind of try and attend to all the talks or even catch up with them afterwards. But I really benefit from having this conversation and this in-person interaction with people. And it's really interesting to see how the community progresses and evolves year on year. So what kind of topics did we have last year? Well, it should come as no surprise, Jetpack Compose is right up there, along with Kotlin multi-platform, a lot of stuff from the TouchLab folks. Some performance monitoring was important. Coroutines, of course, is often a popular topic. And more importantly, form factors came into kind of the fold this year. See what I did there? Came into the fold. That was unintentional. With a larger focus on larger screen devices with foldables, with smaller factors as well. That's been like the high focus this year. We've got soft advocacy and soft skills, so the COVID pandemic has left an imprint on our very souls, changing the way we live and work, and it has made things a bit different in our work environment. So there's a lot of talks about these and how to deal with, being at home all the time, or how to kind of manage your work-life balance better. This is a really healthy kind of attitude from the community. I really quite like it. Testing is always a really favorite topic of mine. It should come as no surprise because I gave a talk about testing yesterday. Plugin development has been a hot topic as well. This is for both Gradle and Kotlin and Compose. Jetpack Glance has been a new topic with the introduction of this library. And because Google is fantastic at naming things, modern Android development. So let's start off the year. We have July. July, the month of freedom for some people, or the month of treachery for others. Often celebrated by people with loud and colorful fireworks, but a bit hard to kind of remember what happened back in July. I can't actually remember what happened last week, so I don't expect you to imagine what can happen in July. Maybe we could use the Compose version or something, like we were on 1.1 then, I think. But anyway, the most important event of the year, the birthday of our cats, Cotty and Pie. These are both adorable and both inappropriate. So back on to our naming paradigm, let's say, so instead of July, we're going to say we're on Compose 1.1.1. So for you, that's an ordinal, it'd be like Compose the first, obviously. So first release in February 23, bumps the required Kotlin version to 1.6 and brings in a lot of improvements to touch targets, focus handling, and promoted some APIs. So July saw a healthy release of Android X libraries, along with episodes 64 of Now on Android and Backstage. This is going to be a recurring theme, so I'll try and keep at a pace with that. We've got Android 13 released, Android Studio Dolphin Beta 5, Electric Eel Canary 8 released, Compose UI 1.2 introduces independent library versioning, so there's a separation of modules there. The window insets were introduced for this, and coroutines 1.6.4, including the privacy sandbox as well. Nice here, we saw the introduction of the beta version of Android 13. So each year, Android goes through the release cycle with developer previews, beta, platform stability, and final release. In July, we saw the Android 13 release. Bye, Greg. And it's only a few weeks until the final release here. Android 13 introduced the runtime permissions for notifications, clipboard previews, and the job scheduler prefetching. So Kotlin 1.7 introduced many improvements of a generic type inference, including the underscore to infer type inference referenced elsewhere. The K2 compiler was introduced as alpha stable, and a lot of opt-in annotations became stable. Funnily enough, the opt-in annotation itself was opt-in, so you had to opt into using the opt-in to opt-in to opt-in. Reciprocation is a thing. And funny enough as well, in July, we saw the beginning of the Twitter saga. Infinity Edition, because it goes on forever. So Space Karen withdrew the $44 billion bid to buy Twitter after some drunken exchange on Twitter because he thought it was a fantastic fucking idea. So this is sort of marking his intention and sort of begins the beginning of this lovely love story that is just like a slow-motion train crash. You can't take your eyes away from it. It's too interesting to ignore. We saw the accession of Finland and Sweden, or beginning this process into NATO, which is a wonderful thing, showing the military defensive alliance. Just in case you are worse at European geography than I am, these ones are Finland and Sweden. I had to check too, don't worry. In July, Google celebrated 10 years of the Google Play Store, boosting their investment into a thriving ecosystem. And if you can imagine a world without the Play Store, it's not a very fun one, because you have to deal with other things. But the Play Store is ubiquitous to Android and Android devices, and it's de facto place for safely installing apps. So it's nice to see this hasn't been killed by Android yet, Google yet. August, composed the 32nd. The month of harvesting, including both International Beer Day and International Hangover Day. No relation. There's also a fantastic talk at Chicago Roboto. I have no skin in this game, completely unbiased, but I recommend checking it out anyway. August releases. I'll try and go through this quickly. We saw the Now on Android episode 65 and 66. Along with an array of Jetpack releases. We saw Android Studio Electric Eel Canary 10, Dolphin RC1, and Chipmunk Patch 2, along with the next beta version of Android 13. We saw the beta version of Camera X 1.2, the Galaxy Z Fold 4 was released, and we had serialization 1.4 and Zipline from the nice folks at the Cache app. We're also celebrating 5 years of Kotlin on Android. This was really kind of awesome. It was back in 2017 that Google announced Kotlin at the Google I/O keynote, and it's been 5 years. It's in August, so in retrospect, I think it was a pretty good decision. Any opinions out there? Kotlin, Android, here to stay? Yeah, we like it. All right, cool. Google, you're fine to carry on. You've had approval. So 2 episodes of Talking Kotlin with Kotlin design patterns from Alexis Soshin and Compose and Cache App with Jake Wharton and Sackett. These are great episodes. Recommend go checking them out. Episode 2 of the Twitter saga. Twitter's former security boss then exposes some leaks about belts and safety. Lets the assessors know that things were a bit negligent and security practices weren't being followed. Whistleblower and legendary hacker Peter Mudge Zatko. adding to the controversy around the purchase and making this all more fun. So September composed the firstly, second to first. That is starting to fall apart. The appropriately named Oktoberfest is home to this month because September is on October, because October, Germans. We also had Boris Johnson resigning, which was expected. And we had DroidCon New York taking place in Manhattan. This was a wonderful conference, took place next to the World Trade Center. Bill and I gave a talk about Molecule. Go check out the videos online. Highly recommended. Releases for September, yay! We have another few episodes of Androids, now in Android, episodes 67, 68, and 69. The folks were busy this month, along with an episode of Android Backstage. We've got a lot of Jetpack releases. The Android Gradle plugin was bumped to 7.3. Android Studio Flamingo Canary 2, Electric Eel Beta 1, Dolphin Stable, and some Android X patch updates. I wouldn't expect you to remember all of these releases. I had to actually reference them myself. It just feels like I'm updating Android Studio every day. But all those tasty updates. We also saw the introduction of 1.7.2 of Kotlin. The privacy sandbox was developed a little bit further. And we had Android Studio Dolphin released. This release of Android Studio introduced compose animation previews, recomposition counts, and some new logcat formatting. If you've seen the new logcat formatter, it's quite nice. The old one was a bit kind of difficult to navigate sometimes, so you can add some nice filters, put your own custom searches in. It's really quite nice and much better to use. But this was some time ago. If you're not already on Dolphin, I'm sorry. It might always feel as well like we're installing a new version of Android Studio every week, and if it feels like that, it's because we are. We saw 1.7.2 of Kotlin. This is a major release. So whilst K2 is still in alpha, we got some support for existing plugins being stabilized with the all-open, no args, and SAM with the receiver and Lombok plugins from the Kotlin team being supported. There's some open-end ranges being developed. This was already possible with the existing notation, but it just added an extra one to make it a bit nicer. We have generic inline classes, which are cool. Native Memory Manager was being developed for native side of Kotlin multi-platform. And JVM toolchain was introduced so that we don't have to keep on setting this JVM version through the old way. And some improvements to documentation. Also in September, DroidCon Berlin published a series of conversations with community members. This is a really enriching and nice series to go check out. I recommend go checking it out. Hopefully I'll join them one year, maybe forever alone. Google also launches Compose Camp, a series of in-person virtual sessions to make learning Compose even easier. And we also, unfortunately, saw the demise of Google Stadia. I'm very sad about this one. Along with quietly cancelling the unreleased Pixel book and dissolving the team, surprising absolutely nobody, Stadia gets axed after not achieving goals. But it is not without a silver lining. You can go check out with your Bluetooth controllers by December the 31st and switch them to Bluetooth so that you can use them with other devices or with your phone. Speaking about graveyards, the Queen died. Take that as you wish. So, in response to the Queen dying, the Brits responded in the most British-ish way to ever Brit a Brit. We formed a queue. Not only forming a queue, we formed a queue for the queue. So we had there was a space on the far side on the right. You can see there was a kind of a gathering area for people to join the queue. And they were given tickets and told to actually go away once the queue was big enough. Like this queue stretched for 16 kilometers. 16 kilometers queue. Such was the enthusiasm for people to see the Queen in state. Brits are gonna Brit. On a serious side, we also unfortunately saw the passing of Kathleen Booth, who was responsible for designing the first assembler language and the assembly language and the assembler. You could speculate that without her, that modern computing wouldn't really have been possible. So it's really important to remember. It's also the namesake. She's also the namesake of one of the rooms here in Berlin. In security news, we are seeing the Cyber Resilience Act going through the European Parliament. You might not have heard of this, but it is something to keep aware of because it has implications for sharing of code in open source environments. It's meant to try and improve the security of services and products, but the European Commission, in their endlessly infinite wisdom, decided to do it in this way, which is purposely ambiguous, so could be worrisome, but just keep it on your radar. October, compose the first. Nah, gonna have to drop that one. So October saw many number of multi-platform developments, and our compose date analogy has definitely fallen apart. We saw DroidCon in DroidCon Kaigi in Italy, in Singapore, in Egypt, and in London. This was the Android Developer Summit in Italy, in the Bay Area, sorry. We've got the Kotlin multi-platform mobile release, which is sharing logic across Android and iOS. This wasn't an actual individual artifact to download, but a series of helpful documentations and plugins and betas that kind of move along this and make it fun to use Kotlin on different platforms. In tandem, Google announces their work on publishing some experimental previews of some Jetpack libraries. So we saw the data store and the annotations library, I think, being made multi-platform from Android X, which is a very good start. But please continue with this. I'm just going to stare at you while I drink. I'm sure there are other Googlers as well, but I'm just singling you out. Another fun release month. So, now in Android, we have a lot of Jetpack releases. We have Android Studio Dolphin Patch 1, including general fixes, Electric Eel Beta 4, and Flamingo Canary 6, material design components for Android 1.7, and JetBrains Fleet Preview and Compose multi-platform, and Jetpack multi-platform, and Kotlin multi-platform. There's a multi-platform theme in this month, if you haven't followed. Material design components as well, along with Serialization 1.4.1. Compose 1.2 introduces support for ProGuide Optimizer and obfuscation without special configuration, which is nice because I really can't be bothered setting up my ProGuide files because I'm very lazy. Improved focus management for keyboard navigation with modifiers and improved slider. Modifiers for on-click desktop support, which is quite nice because it handles fine-grained click handling. So you can modify it with a keyboard, for example, if you have an application with an interaction where you have modifiers, Option, Shift, Control, and other keyboard modifiers, along with the RTL support and conveyor compatibility. I haven't used conveyor, but it looks cool. JetBrains Fleet, as I said, was released in a kind of open public trial. If you haven't used it, it's a really nice lightweight editor. I guess you could compare it to VS Code, but it has the IDE IntelliJ sort of smarts in the background, but they run in a different process, so you can actually just turn this on and off. If you're finding yourself in a constrained environment, maybe you're on the train or something and you don't have enough battery or you need to use something lightweight. Fleet is a nice little alternative to IDE that might be otherwise a little bit too heavy. Google hosts the Made by Google event in New York to announce the new hardware lineups. No unexpected surprises because Google took a different approach to letting their devices get leaked and leak them themselves. Actually, not a bad decision. We saw the Pixel 7, the Pro, the tablet, the watch, and the Nest hardware being released along with Chromecast. And the Kotlin Foundation launched the Kotlin multi-platform contests, with the winners getting all expenses trip paid to Kotlin 23. Only eligible students can take part in this, so make sure if you are a student that you register for this next year, for next Kotlin Conf. I'm sure you'll be able to get some nice things there. So as I mentioned, our esteemed Prime Minister, Mr. Boris Johnson himself, resigned, being replaced by Liz Truss, who announced immediately that she is a fighter, not a quitter. 21 days later, the fighter, not a quitter, Truss quits. Outlasted by an unrefrigerated iceberg lettuce wearing a wig after only 29 days in office. Replaced by the rat from Ratatouille, having now become a lifestyle coach after being abandoned. Question time. This is the interaction part. What has more than $30 billion but no legs? Anyone? What has over $30 billion but no legs? That's right, it's Mark Zuckerberg's avatar. During the Horizon World Connect event, Meta demonstrated that they have now legs, but it then proved to be just an animation. So yeah, $30 billion won't buy you legs, unfortunately. The Twitter saga continues. That sinking feeling. The world's richest child, Chief Twat Elmo, finalized his Twitter takeover, visits the headquarters with a sink, immediately fires the top executives, and just starts acting like an ass. Following then, we had the mass exodus to Mastodon. If you're not already on Mastodon, try it out. November, Google introduces the, I skipped my notes there. We have Backstage in Android and now in Android, a busy release for the DevRel team. We've got lots of things here. This month we've got Android Studio releases, Compose UI 1.3, Kotlin 1.8 beta, and a developer satisfaction survey. Turns out developers are satisfied. Good job. We can all go home. We had the Android Dev Summit continue in London with a platform track covering security, privacy, personalization, and capabilities, and lots of beers to be had, lots of fun times, and lots of selfies, and clearly some very important group photos. I had some really nice podcasts this week with Jake Ward and Jesse Wilson on A Touch of Multi-Platform, the Talking Kotlin with Christian and Sudarshan, sorry if I mispronounced that name, on the new Realm multi-platform product. And we saw the release of Health Connect, which is Google's attempt to kind of combine these health APIs into a centralized point where you can kind of interact with your different sources. This was also kind of a little bit to do with Fitbit and the acquisition there, but we don't want to look too much into that. That's for the European Commission to do. It's now available as beta from the Google Play Store, or at least it was in November, so probably still is. Maybe even had an update now. December, an unusually festive month. Greta Thunberg burns Andrew Tate to a misogynistic crisp. Space Karen posts polls to ask people what he's going to do anyway. Twitter abruptly bans links to competitors and reverses decision 48 hours later. And the US House passes legislation protecting same-sex marriage. One of the very few wins the US has had this year. We've got James Ward and Chet et al. On the Android Developers Backstage podcast to discuss Kotlin and K2. We've got the Android, now in Android 74, Android Studio Electric Eel RC13, Flamingo Canary 10, Kotlin 1.8, with experimental JVM features and the improvements to Objective-C compatibility. I've also got releases for Android 13 with TV and improvements to performance and accessibility. We also had the release of the Kotlin DL Deep Learning library, which is quite nice, with Android Studio support. This is for detecting shapes and objects and is very personal to me because I have a passion for identifying sheep. Oh, it would help to let you know that I'm Welsh. We had Android 13 for TV, introduced the Audio Manager APIs. We had Compose Web OS 1.1 with the first stable release since July last year. Brings outlined styles for chips and buttons and possibly modified shapes with method overloads, inclusion of placeholders, modifiers, including the shimmer modifier, and additional parameters with the curved text style, so you can have your text going around the watch faces you can see in the last screenshots. Another episode in this Twitter saga that feels like it does go on forever because it is so infinitely named. Twitter abruptly bans all links to Instagram, Mastodon, and other competitors because that's totally illegal. And as I mentioned, Greta Thunberg roasts Andrew Tate to a misogynistic crisp in the most beautifully internet way possible. It's days like this when I really am thankful the internet exists because she ended the year with the best tweet imaginable. If you get the chance, actually go to getalife.com. It's a hall of fame for people who actually get annihilated online. It has one entry. The internet just... Oh. Starting the new year with a bang, January. Android Text team joins the folks on Android for Backstage to discuss text. We have the Android Gradle plugin 7.4, Android Studio Electric Eel stable, Flamingo Beta 1, Giraffe Canary 2. Folks, this is hard to say. We've got the changes to electrical in that mark the next iteration of Compose previews that will update automatically with compatible previews. Still doesn't work with multi-platform though. Additional device specs with Compose previews, a visual linting for views, and universal problems panel, improved sync performance, and significant upgrades to build analysis and automatic updates. And one of my favorite features from this release, the resizable emulators, was really cool. So you can emulate how your app works on different physical devices, on different form factors, and there's various support there. So you don't have to kind of use SCRCPY or Visor if you're using it. This is directly built into Android Studio as well. So this is really nice. Awesome job, guys. We had the Experts Summit in Berlin, which was fantastic if you had the benefit, or if you have the joy of going. And then we had February, GitHub partners with the European Commission to improve cybersecurity and support developers, and lots of other things over the Brexit NI protocol. The team backstage in Android cover the modular systems in mainline as Chet and Roman get a bit more consistent in their scheduling. We've got developer previews of Android 14, Electric Eel Patch 1, Flamingo Beta 3, Giraffe, Canary 7, and an episode of Atom, A Touch in Android with Ash Davies and Colin Lee. JetBrains announced a change to Kotlin targeting for native support. So some of the more kind of exotic targets being deemed as a bit too difficult to provide support for. There was a nice article explaining why this was and what decisions they made and why they did this, basically because they were too optimistic. It happens to the best of us. We have desugaring developments as well improved, which is quite nice. If you are unfortunate, again, to be working with Java on Android, there are some new APIs that help you out desugaring for Java 11 features. This is a separate artifact that you can include in your app to kind of provide this compatibility. Yeah, like I said, it's mostly if you're working with Java, and maybe you have worse problems if that's true. March. A lot of releases this one. We've got 78 and 79 of Now on Android backstage, and we've got Developer Preview 14 released again, Android Studio Flamingo RC1, Giraffe Canary 11, getting tired of that one, and episode 5, Copilot X, and a lot of releases. So much like all other things, Android, Kotlin, Professor, everything sounds cooler if you append it with the letter X. So we have GitHub Copilot X now, which uses the open API to automate writing unit tests and pull request descriptions, which actually looks kind of cool, and I'm looking forward to trying it out. April, we had the Android makers at DroidCon, lots of new releases, and a lot of announcements at KotlinConf. So let's go through. Have now in Android 80 and 81. We have backstage, no backstage this month, sorry, because they had scheduling problems. Android 14 beta and Gradle plugins and Android Studio Flamingo stable and Giraffe beta 1. Finally, we're in beta now. Now we start seeing the release of Android 14. Like we did from last year, we have the same release schedule where it starts off with the developer preview, beta releases, and platform stability. We saw the Android 14 beta release this month, which is very cool. And we had the Kotlin Conf at Amsterdam in Netherlands. Amazing conference, always is. I hope you had the chance of going. If not, just check it out next year. But definitely go check out the keynote and any of the videos online. Because at KotlinConf, we heard that JetBrains, Google, and Gradle collaborated to make Kotlin DSL the default for Gradle build scripts, which was great. And we saw the announcements of the Kotlin Foundation Silver members. Also very cool. May, the merry month of May, the month to dancing around the maypole, frolicking in the nice sun, partying in Kreuzberg during Tag der Arbeit, or just thinking about what birthday present to buy me. We saw the Jetpack Media 3.1 release, allows for media conversion, transcoding, and supplying edit operations. The Design Hub was released, which is really cool. Samsung and Google collaborated to improve the background work because Samsung's really good at background work. We saw some developments of the Android Studio logo, which is pretty cool, and some developments to the Wear OS watch face format and the Android Studio bot, which is not available in Europe. And then we had also the second beta of Android 14. A nice thing from this month, which I really kind of quite enjoy. So I'm not sure if you've been following the news in Germany, but there's recently been a lot of climate protests with the Klimakleber that stick themselves to the road. And everyone's a bit unhappy about it, and yeah, stuff's happening. And then I saw this tweet, which I thought was just kind of beautiful. So this says, oh, the Berlin Autobahn was blocked by climate protesters. Oh, sorry, climate. This was following an intense day of about 2 days of heavy rainfall, and yeah, it blocked the Autobahn because yeah, the climate change is a real thing. But onto Android. We saw the Android Studio bot with Google I/O, which is very cool, powered by Google AI support. If you haven't had the chance to try this, it's not your fault, you're just in the wrong country. You can use a VPN. You can use a VPN to go through America and then use it that way. It doesn't actually interact with your code directly, so it's actually, there's no issues with the GDPR, or data sharing or data transmission. So it's quite safe to play around with. We saw the evolution of the Android Studio logo. Very, very cool. Also a little bit unexpected, but still very cool. The establishment of the Android Design Hub, which was for opinionated guidance on Android UIs on a variety of form factors. So here we see just a little widget being resized, but this was a lot of guidance for different form factors as Google is encouraging developers to experiment and play with larger screen devices and different form factors. We also saw the announcement of the new Pixel family form factors with some, frankly, eye-watering prices, but some very cool devices nonetheless. June, getting closer to home. We have the in-app products API enabling easy configuration of base plans and subscriptions. The Camera X 1.3 hits beta with 10-bit video streaming and a HDR profile supports. We also had Google I/O Connect, again in Amsterdam, amazing event, which was, yeah, Google I/O visits Amsterdam for this EU leg of the tour. The Google I/O team did a number of events in different places to actually make sure it's more of an inclusive event, so it's not just restricted to the Bay Area, which is very cool. Thank you, Google. I think they just did one in Bangalore as well, and in, where else was it? Shanghai. Thank you. Yeah, great marks, Google. I really enjoyed this conference this year. Let's hopefully do it again next year and collect all the pins. Eliza and I were running around collecting these pins. I hope you all managed to get them. I don't know what to say. I don't know about you, but I just can't imagine a lovelier couple. They look so cute together, don't they? But I can't imagine a better pair best suited to kill each other. That would be fantastic. And then that brings us to DroidCon Berlin, and I couldn't find a better place for this very judgmental photo for my cats. So I decided, like, oh, you're only doing one talk? No, you can do better than that. So there's my judgmental cats. And here's an empty slide. Wow, that was quite a slog. If it was difficult for you to follow all that, don't beat yourself up, because it's hard. That was a lot of information to get through, and I only just skimmed the surface of that. So all the releases and all these kind of blazingly fast progressions, incredibly hard to difficult and incredibly hard to process. How can I even begin to quantify this information? So let's start off with a bit of a timeline. So I love conferences, big surprise. So let's go through all the conferences we had last year, because there were quite some. Trends show that October and November were the most productive months. So we had DroidCon Berlin starting off in July, Chicago Roboto in August, DroidCon New York in September, and then October, everything. So we had DroidCons in Tokyo, Turin, Singapore, Egypt, and the Dev Summit and DroidCon in London. We also had a few in November, so October, November are clearly the conference days, and you'll see this actually has an impact on library development. It's quite interesting. So remember, October, November, conference months. December, yeah, Christmas. And we had January and February. Conference season sort of has a slow uptake and kind of picks up in February and April. So we had the FOSDEM conference and AppRise Conf, and then GDG Fest in Pisa, Amsterdam, and Android Makers in Paris. We had App DevCon, Google I/O, and PL Droid, and San Francisco. And then today, yay. It's been a great conference so far. I hope you're still enjoying it, and I hope you haven't broken anything on these balancing boards. I would recommend, if you do try it, don't hold your beer. This is a rookie move. Yeah, so definitely don't hurt yourself. But we have some upcoming conferences as well. So we have DroidCon Vietnam coming up. We have Mobile Week. I'm going to just read from here because I can't see from this. Mobile Week here, DroidCon New York and DroidCon Kaigi, DroidCon Lisbon and DroidCon Turin and London coming up, as well as Kenya and Turin and London. Turin is in there twice. Either they're very efficient or I'm not. Probably the latter one. Conferences online. There were a lot of conferences online as well. So of course the pandemic affected our daily lives and the way we interact with people online as well with conferences. So we're seeing a lot of online availabilities and these things happening very regularly, which is very cool, introducing another aspect for people to kind of get involved with the community. So this was lifted directly from the KotlinCon keynote because I don't know how to get these numbers. But multi-platforms libraries year by year has seen a significant increase from apparently 700, if you can judge that on the line, I'm not sure, to 1,200. But it's definitely a trajectory of going up, so that's a good thing, right? Up is good, yeah? Help? We also saw the results of the Kotlin satisfaction survey. I mean, it should come as no surprise, really, that Kotlin developers like Kotlin. We're pretty satisfied, all good. We heard that 95% of the top 1,000 apps are in Kotlin, which is fantastic because I am now very relieved to know that we don't need any more than 1,000 apps. Further, we saw that from the same cohort, 21% of apps are in Jetpack Compose UI. I didn't have access to this data. This is from Kotlin, so let's just trust it. We had 8 stable releases of Kotlin. That's actually quite impressive over the year. We went from 1.7.1 to 1.8.2. That's quite a lot of releases, and there were a lot of features in each one of those things, so that was a lot of things to do. I tried also trying to reproduce the data from GitHub to detect on how many have the language Kotlin and how many have topic multi-platform. I'm pretty sure these numbers are not correct. It just actually shows me how many it can render in one page, so treat this with a whole lot of salt. Podcasts, 74 episodes of various podcasts. We have the Backstage in Android Backstage developers. We have Now in Android developers podcast, Developers Bakery, the Touch Lab folks working with JetBrains for the touch of multi-platform, and we have Talking Kotlin. I showed this briefly to Nicola yesterday, and he seemed unimpressed with the size of his promo here, so here's a bigger one. It's actually a really good podcast. I recommend checking it out. More charts, because that's wonderful. From this wonderfully generated graph from data of Stack Overflow, we can see trends of 2023 over 2022 to 2023, showing tags for total questions. It might not look like a lot there, but that's actually an increase of 4,000 questions per month because we're just working with really kind of minuscule figures here, like a 0.3 of several million questions. It's quite a few. And this is where we can see the impact of the conference circuit to library releases. So remember when I said October, November was the most productive months? Well, we can see a spike in releases there because, well, actually, it kind of makes sense because Google is going to release libraries at the same time of announcing them. Makes sense, right? And we saw the continued development from the open source community. It's the Kotlin multi-platform line here, kind of throwing everything a little bit out, but you can see the development cadence of open source libraries is generally about 1 to 2 releases a month. It seems to be a good number, but of course we all use a lot of libraries. So we're on the tail end of the presentation, don't worry, I'm good for time. Average coffee consumption. I figured this was a very important metric for a lot of people here. But unfortunately, I couldn't get the numbers for 2023, so we've got the numbers for 2020 instead. But let's just say it correlates. We consumed 91 million kilograms of coffee, or 9.1 million metric tons, otherwise known as a fuck ton. The US consumed 91 and Germany consumed 5. Fun fact, whilst every different country kind of boasts their own coffee consumption about having consumed the most amount of coffee per capita or per person or per cat, Finland is on top with per capita consumption. So congratulations, Finland. For posterity, I thought it was important to include myself here. So we have the worldwide metric, United States, Germany, developers, and me. Being British, I drink tea. So, tea consumption. Very important metric as well. For those interested, the annotation here, MTNG, is a million megagrams, or metric tons, also known as a shit ton, or a fuck ton. And we had 3 wonderful prime ministers because, as you know, the intended term is to be 4 years, but because the UK is incredibly efficient, we managed to get through 3 of them in several months. Must be something to do with the European Union. Notably, Truss served as the shortest ever term ever. Never let it be said that the UK isn't a great place to work because the pensions they get, oof, amount of work to pensions received. And closing off the presentation, can anybody name me that galaxy cluster? No? Oh. This is the Perseus Galaxy Cluster. Back in May last year, NASA observed that the dense cloud formations in this area of the universe actually vibrated against each other, causing an actual vibration or wavelength to be measured, meaning that they could, in fact, measure a sound and raise the frequency so it would actually be in our audible range. Would you all like to hear what it sounds like? What the black hole at the center of the Perseus Galaxy sounds like? Thank you. So while I was planning and researching this, and I found that there was an absolute ton of resources, an absolute ton of documentation, an absolute ton of libraries, and so many things being released. It was unfathomably difficult to kind of keep on track with everything, and I couldn't even fit everything into the presentation, so there's a whole load of wealth of information out there. But the important thing to take away from this is don't panic. It is not possible for you to know everything, to learn everything, to be an expert in every single different field. You need to collaborate with your team members, specialize in something that is important to you, and don't be overwhelmed, because we're all learning something new every day, and that's the wonderful part of this community, is that by keeping this aspect and keeping this progression and keeping this open-mindedness that we all have, and we all need to cherish, because every day is a new opportunity to learn something new, and I have been Ash Davies. If there was anything missing, please get in touch and let me know. And Kotlin Foundation, please don't sue me for the bastardization of your logo. Thank you, everybody.